Hello, giggly witches. Welcome
Hello.
to episode 32. We have a very fun guest today, Jill Parekh. I'm so sorry. We just went over it.
That's great.
I get
It's
so
okay.
You just
nervous
said it a
with names.
handful of ways.
It's okay.
We have your
Everybody screws it up.
coach,
It's
Jill.
Your
Your
coach,
coach Jill is
Jill,
great.
the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome queen, right? That's what.
Yep.
Okay, so all today, now I'm nervous. I'm so bad with I get so nervous because everybody
totally
pronounces
fine.
my last name wrong. And
Yep.
so I so badly want to pronounce everybody's name correctly. And then I get so anyway. We're talking about imposter syndrome today.
I'm so excited.
Yes, but first, silly goofy time.
Silly goofy time.
Silly goofy time. It's an important pillar of
I
the
have
Giggly Witches.
the perfect story for this, and I'm so excited.
Okay, please share.
Do you want to kick
Yes.
us off?
Yes. Okay. So last year I got married and I had my bachelorette in Miami and it was so fun. But a girlfriend who's from New York came and she forgot her swimsuit bikini bottoms at the Airbnb. So I took them home with me and I was like, no problem. But she was recently going on vacation. So she was like, hey, Jill, can you please send the bikini to me to New York? So I said, sure. So it's after hot yoga and I roll up to the post office with the bikini in my hand and I go in there and there's this guy and her address was just her partner's name, who was a guy. So this guy absolutely thought that I was sending underwear to a man. And it was like 8 a.m. and I just had the bikini and I had to like stick it in something in front of him. And I was like, can I use a pen? And he was like, sure. And he gave me the dirtiest fucking look. He was like, you sick freak, you're sending underwear to a man. And I was like, wow, I did not think this through at all. So
oh my God. He's like, how much did this man pay for you?
Yeah,
you
like,
to him?
get that back, clean. Girly. I'm like, so yeah, it was so hilarious. I was just like, wow, it is 8 a.m. and this guy definitely thinks I have like a side hustle sending sending dirty underwear. And I was like, whatever. It isn't true, obviously. So it was hilarious.
That is a really good silly goofy.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have anything super silly today, but I have two things that I wanted to say.
Okay. I was like, the saddest story you've ever told. No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly, one of them is along those lines. But one is I just wanted to another PSA, a Pam service announcement.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else does this, but I find myself like, or if this is like, I don't know if it's like an ADHD thing or if it's just being a woman or whatnot, but I am constantly catching myself having to explain everything. Like I think
that's for sure ADHD. It's like the over explaining of everything.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I just caught myself. I just signed my lease for my new place. I'm very excited about it. And in one of like before I signed it, I like sent her a bunch of questions. And like I was like explaining why I had these questions. And I'm like, you don't need to explain yourself. Just ask the question.
That's an ADHD thing because every client that I have that has ADHD really explains everything, and I have to be like, okay, let's focus in on like one thing.
And it's because it's because you're like trying to like give context and like it's usually because you're so used to being like not understood. So people who have ADHD like constantly feel like I have to really explain because they're used to being like not understood, and that is like the worst thing ever. So you give extra context so people can like understand your intentions.
Yes, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So this is my Pam service announcement. You do not need to over explain. You don't need to explain. You
just ask your questions.
You could just ask. Also, no is a full sentence. You don't need to explain why. Anyway, so
I do have a hard time with that. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
That's my first one. And then I don't know if either of you have gotten onto the anglerfish side of TikTok.
Oh, I heard it's AI though.
No.
Okay,
I did,
I'm gonna
but I
skim
don't know.
right past that. I'm gonna skim right past that.
I'm having a physical reaction.
That helps actually, because it's actually so sad. So it helps me if it's fake. Okay.
So
I have shed too many tears for that to be fucking AF. I've had a really hard week, and that just was like nail in the coffin.
I had a few things
So
about
funny.
this that I wanted to address. One, I recently learned that they're like this big. I thought
Oh,
they
that's
were,
like,
I
guess
thought
there's
they were
yeah,
like
it's just in the
massive
Just like a fish. Yeah, like a
fish.
small one.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're like this big.
Okay,
So that kind of blew my mind for a second.
that's
Because
crazy.
every photo you see of them, they look ginormous.
They're just
but
in the
they're
vast,
just really
deep
close up.
ocean. Yeah, like you
And
don't have
then
anything next to it.
the other thing was like, I was like, do we think that this is, a heartwarming slash heartbreaking story, or is this an omen? Or option C, both.
I felt like it had to do with
did this
like
deep sea fish go all the way to the surface? Maybe we should explain for those that haven't heard this
speaking
story.
of explaining.
Yeah. Speaking of whoever isn't chronically online, this
Literally.
this is for you.
Can never be us.
Like we are.
Not us. So basically, there is this anglerfish. If you don't know what an anglerfish is, they're the ones with the little lights,
They're
right?
very scary.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
and
really
Nemo.
creepy. Yes, and Finding Nemo, with the just keep
That
swimming.
makes
just
sense
keep
why
swimming.
you thought they were so big.
Yes,
This is making a lot of sense to me now.
that's
Okay.
a very great point.
Okay.
I didn't even. Think
I believe
about that.
everything I see in a cartoon.
Yeah. I mean,
Everything
it
on the
did look really
internet.
huge. In
They
that
looked
movie.
huge.
It looked huge. Okay.
Um, but they found this anglerfish, and they're very deep sea fish. Okay,
Very
so they
deep.
are down way deep below in the ocean, and it swam all the way up to the surface, saw the sun, and basically died because it was
It's a
too
deep
bright.
sea fish.
It's a deep sea fish. It's too bright that I'm sure the ocean air is too oxygenated up there, and it was too much for its little gills,
Yeah.
and it died. But everybody's been like,
Sad.
oh my god, the last thing it saw was
Poetic.
Yeah.
Swimming
It's
towards the
been-
sun for its
yes.
last day.
yeah.
I kind of assumed it was probably because the oceans are warming up and the earth is not going to be completely on fire
Right.
soon. That kind of vibe. I was like,
Right.
probably global warming or something bad
Right.
like
Yeah.
that. But I loved how everyone went with Delulu optimism because that's my setting always.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me find the poetry in this. So I
Yeah,
was like,
totally.
love this, but also probably a bad omen.
This is
For
probably not
the
great.
environment.
Yeah, probably the environment going to shit and climate change, but for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Let's go with option one.
Right.
So those are my silly goofies for today. Not exactly silly goofies.
Not very silly goofy at all.
Not very. Oh my God.
Existential.
Okay, my silly goofy is not okay. We're like silly goofy time. It's kind of silly goofy. So I want to share it because I had like the craziest psychic moment that came true. And I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of times when you have those like really strong intuitive like nudges or knowings, like you don't always get confirmation. You're just kind of like go about your life and you never really know if when you listened like what happened, whatever. But I just got to Brazil a couple days ago. I was flying from Medellin, Colombia, and I had this terrible overnight journey, like 2 layovers, 3 flights. And I literally texted my friend and I was like, my bag's gonna get lost tonight. I know it is. So I like packed my stuff differently. I made sure I had my expensive microphone that I usually put in my check because every security officer needs to take it out and doesn't understand what it is. All the things, right? And then lo and behold, and then I go to the airport and I know I think this because I have a short layover, but I get put on an earlier flight and I'm like, great, it's not going to happen. My bag's not going to get lost. Everything's going to be fine now. And I sent a voice note to my friend that I was texting with this. I was like, you know what? I think it's going to be fine. I got put on an earlier flight. I think it's all going to be okay. Then I boarded that earlier flight and we sat on the runway for like 2 hours. And then my short layover was even shorter and I had to sprint to my next flight and I got on there and I was like, My bag ain't coming with me. And lo and behold, here I am, no bag. And it was just fucking crazy that I
mean,
knew
it's
that
kind
that
of
was
a good
gonna
thing though.
happen.
You realize it was happening and you're like, I'm gonna pack all of the things that I need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
I was like bikinis,
yep.
makeup, the essential toiletries.
Yep.
Because usually all my stuff is super, because I'm a nomad. I live, out of my suitcase, so everything's super separated, like by type of item. But I like mixed stuff up so I could have a good mix of stuff here and everything. So I'm like, thank God I listened. But it was just crazy. I was like, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew it. But I've been traveling for 2 years and it hasn't happened yet. So knock
Wow.
on wood, it doesn't again.
Super
Yeah,
But
lucky.
good odds.
Yeah,
Good
that's
odds.
kind of like one of my like worst fears, which sounds ridiculous, but it's just because I'm so organized and like
Yes.
almost like
yeah.
in an autistic way, like I do really feel like I have it. So like when I don't have all of my stuff and I'm not organized and I'm not set, it really upsets me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would kill
Yeah.
me.
No,
I
I understand.
Yeah.
I was laughing because like you're the imposter syndrome queen, and I saw on
Yeah.
your page too, like you talk about like nervous system regulation
Yeah.
and all of these things, which I'm big on too. I work with the subconscious and nervous system and all these
Yep.
things. And I was like, I've had like one of the worst weeks of my entire life in total.
Oh no, I'm so
Lost my
sorry.
bag. This crazy guy was following me in Colombia and like
Oh
grabbed
my
me. I'm
God.
totally fine. But I was like, the week leading up to this conversation, God was like, what if we just see how good she really is at
Let's just see
regulating her
how
nervous
fucking
system?
regulated that nervous system is.
And I'm
We're
like,
gonna
no,
test it.
I'm chill. I'm like, I'm chill. I'm cool. No,
You're like,
everything's
I'm gonna
fine.
use all
The
of
eye
the
is
tools, the
twitching.
EFT tapping, everything, so I don't
I
have a
literally
fucking
was
mental
like,
breakdown.
I've been tapping 4 times a day. I'm fine.
Yeah, it's needed sometimes. That's why it's there, honestly.
But
I love it.
it made me like extra grateful for those tools because like I also, oh my God, my first flight, this isn't silly goofy at all, but I didn't realize how much it affected me in the news, that flight
Mm,
that crashed in DC.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
flying, I'm a frequent flyer, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like in New York like the week right before that, and my friend had flown into DC, so it just kind of like freaked me out to like it was
For
like
sure.
close, you know? I have no anxiety at all at the airport boarding the plane. We start going down the runway and my body goes and we take off.
It's scary.
I am
Yeah.
and I've never had flight anxiety in my entire life. I've always been completely chill, never questioned it. I'm like hallucinating that we're falling out of the sky. Like I have a window seat and I am like I I think we're falling out of the sky. Like it was crazy. And then I'm just sitting there like sky, I'm tapping. Calm down. I'm like, it was so crazy, but it made me very, very grateful for all my
Yeah.
tools, all of that. Um, and then the other flights were totally fine and I was okay. I got myself through it. But it was so wild. But I was like, you know what? We're surviving. Everything's gonna be fine. And now we can gracefully go into our beautiful conversation with the
Yes.
imposter syndrome queen that's also an expert on the subconscious and nervous system regulation, all that good stuff. But my first question, Jill, I just want to know like your story. How did you come to
Yes.
be your coach, Jill?
Yeah.
How did you come to study these things? Tell us more about like who you are and how you got here.
Yeah. So I finished university in 2017 and I was going to become a therapist, but there are a lot of rules and regulations around therapy. And this is before I got diagnosed with having ADHD. So I didn't know that like my aversion to authority and all of these things were related to that. I was just like, I
Mm,
really don't want to be put in a container where like I can't be who I am and I can't utilize tools that I want to utilize. And it just felt really like
yeah,
restricting.
Yeah.
that
So
makes sense.
I was working full time for the government and I finished my schooling and I was like, oh, I found this like YouTube thing of like Tony Robbins or some shit. And I was like, oh, I was like coaching. So I started coaching and I started in 2018. And I just started noticing that imposter syndrome was coming up for me, even though I was overly qualified and I had like certifications and education and all of these things. And I was just like, why do I feel like I'm not good enough? Why do I feel like everything I'm doing like isn't good enough to be paid for? And as I started coaching, working with or people, I started realizing like, oh, like this is a very common thing in the online space. And then I got certified in the subconscious mind tools, reprogramming the subconscious mind. I got certified in nervous system regulation tools in 2020. And I finally was like, I need to start doing some of this work on me, because I was like, if I'm going to be like an ethical, integrous coach, like I need to be doing the work that I'm helping other clients do. And I started uncovering like all of the experiences I had as a child. I have a speech impediment, and like that really affected how I saw like my worthiness and if I was good enough. Like everybody used to call me stupid when I was a kid, and I'm actually super smart. And there were just a lot of things that came up, and I was like, all from just starting a coaching business. Like it was crazy. All the shit that fucking came up. I was just like, it's crazy that as you start to like create content, put yourself out there, put out offers, all of your shit just comes to the surface, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's actually wild.
It's like if you want to do the fastest path on your like personal development journey, start a business.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It really is like a catalyst to your like personal development journey that I honestly feel like we're always on, like constantly, right? So then I saw that, okay, nobody is talking about imposter syndrome and this feeling of not being enough, even though I have had countless calls with people. I've run groups and everything where like people were constantly coming to me with this feeling of like, I don't feel good enough. And it was affecting how they showed up to sell. It was affecting how they created their content, etc. So then I started to specialize in imposter syndrome. And here we are. I have a podcast called the From Imposter to Empowered podcast that has over 120,000 downloads. And in 2022, first I self-published my first book called You're Not Special. And it's all about overcoming imposter syndrome and stepping into your worthiness. And I started my coaching business in 2018. And since then I've made multiple six figures, and it's been a journey. And I really think that people like don't realize that imposter syndrome like really affects every area if you don't handle it.
Yeah. That was actually going to be one of my questions further down the line, but like I was curious because you know you are a business coach that specializes in imposter syndrome. So how has working on imposter syndrome like for your business, for you and your clients, what's been the coolest ripple effect and like or the most maybe like common thing in other areas of life that you see like maybe for yourself or you know with clients that has also come of the work? So you're doing this in a within the business context, but how does it like radiate out into other areas of life for maybe yourself and clients that you work with?
Yeah, so I think I would say it's the confidence piece and really like going after things that you didn't see yourself going after before. So really taking opportunities and like realizing that the stories you used to tell yourself about you can't do this or you can't accomplish the thing that you're thinking about isn't true at all. So for me, like I think I struggled with imposter syndrome for a long time. It's just I didn't have the terminology until I started coaching, and like I would struggle with it in like my university career. I'd be like, oh, like I can't do like this kind of class, and the and I would like end up overcoming it and achieving that thing. Or when I worked in my full-time job and I had to like compete for different kind of jobs and that kind of stuff. I was always like, I can't, blah, 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 until I actually achieved that thing. So I think that overcoming imposter syndrome and the feeling of not being good enough helps kind of like remove the thoughts of like, I'm not good enough, I can't do that. So you can get directly to the results that you're looking for.
I have that conversation with Sadie all the time. She's like, well, you're never gonna get anywhere if you don't just try it.
That's nice.
And like, but I'm not like, I need to learn more. Like I need to learn more. She's like, you're learning. You're already learning and you learn as you're doing it. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Well, I need to learn more.
There's a certain point though, a tipping point where you start to, you can learn so much out of books and programs, and then you need to learn by doing and being with your clients and finding your own voice within that, not like what the teacher has like, you know, there's always that, and then that's where you like take off and you begin to learn faster in that sense too, I think. But it comes from a good place, like you want to be, you know, ethical and like well informed, but I'm like, girl, you are already an expert at this. Get out there, get moving. There's a tip
for sure. And like I feel like at the beginning of my coaching journey, like I was doing all of the courses and reading all of the things, blah 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 blah, and like what happens is people get so caught in the like overconsumption that they are not taking action and they're not actually like moving towards the things that they're hoping to achieve, but they feel like they are because they're over consuming.
That's me.
And I did that in the beginning too. I totally did that. Like that was me back in like 2020 going into 2021. So I totally get it. But then there's a point where you have to kind of like jump off the cliff.
I think, I think a big part of it too for me is that I have an insane fear of failure. Like it feels to me that when I fail, I disappoint myself and I disappoint everybody around me. And or maybe it's a fear of disappointment via failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that is a big thing that also contributes to my imposter syndrome, is like constantly feeling like I'm not going to be good enough at what I'm doing or what I'm offering because I don't know enough. And if I don't know enough and I'm not good enough, then I let everybody down by not being good at what I'm offering. Or
is
like,
that ultimately true?
Right. I'm like, yes, but is that true?
That's where mine comes from.
And like there are like scientific reasons too. So for women specifically, we have a more overactive anterior cingulate cortex, and that is like a filter in our brain that is like responsible for picking up mistakes. So we actually are more apt to pick up on things that we're doing wrong and like overanalyze the things that we are doing. And then societal conditioning comes in too. So if you've had experiences or things where like people have directly or indirectly told you that you're not good enough, or especially when you're a girl and like people kind of expect like girls to be like perfect and smart and all of these things, and they don't really teach like it's okay to fail, it's okay to screw up, versus with a boy it's like they're taught like resilience and like they're taught like it's okay if you fall down, just get up again, you know? So I find it's like a combination of like the scientific things as well as like your upbringing and your childhood too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to ask you like how it specifically affects women too. Because I feel like a lot of women experience it more than men. I feel like that's like kind of like the running joke, right? Like act like a man. What would it like
a mediocre white man?
Yeah, what would
like
a mediocre white man
exactly
do?
Exactly. Also because of like the way things are online, like we aren't receiving a lot of external validation, and if you're used to that, to like figure out how am I doing, that can be really hard in the online space, because like we don't get any. It's like you have to show up, you have to sell, you have to do all of these things. And like, unless you have clients who are up your ass all the time being like, you're so amazing, blah, 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 blah. Like you don't get that. So you really have to have it in you. Like you have to say you're doing a good job, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I just saw, I can't remember who posted it, but it was basically someone just essentially saying like girls and boys, like as we grow up, like, you know, like it's like, oh, girls mature faster and, you know, boys will be boys
It's
and,
because we have
you
to.
know,
Yes.
yeah, and like, but it's like all through like school and even into college, you know, there's the frat boys and the oh, they're just boys, you know. But we have to be so like grown and mature since we're like, I mean, I remember I was more of an adult at 8 years old than I am now, like truly.
Than I am now. You just threw that in there.
Like truly, I was so
Totally.
serious and like I'm like way more of a like childlike wonder, like whatever now. And that's part of the spiritual journey, I think. But my point is, but then it becomes, and then we get out of school, out of college, and we go out into the real world, and then it becomes completely flip-flopped, and it's like men are the leaders and men get paid more, and yet our entire fucking lives we've had to be grown and mature, and we're getting better grades, and we're more emotionally, you know, regulate and all of the things, and it's like, whoa. Excuse me. And the same thing was saying how the same kinds of books for women are labeled self-help, and a similar thing is labeled leadership for men, but it's like the same fucking book.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's like essentially the same fucking books, but it's like self-help or leadership. And it is, self-help is a form of leadership, is it not? Like truly, but I was just like, yeah, what the fuck? The whole, like, when we're like kids, we have to be all grown and mature, and we're the leaders because we're smarter, we test better all throughout everything, you know? And then we get to the, you know, quote, real world, and it's like, well, you know, women are too emotional. Like,
which is
I've
true.
been emotionally
like, we are, but like it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's actually a good thing.
It's actually a good thing. Like
thing.
our ability to have like empathy and our natural, you know, nurturing, the mothering sense doesn't always have to be for giving birth to a literal child. The mothering instinct is good for lots of different
everything.
Things. Literally everything. I was just like, damn. Yeah.
Also, scientifically, women have lower testosterone, and confidence and risk taking are linked to testosterone. So men naturally have more of that. And for us, we can kind of feel like less certain about our abilities, hesitate to take action, etc. too.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Could be that, which is interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating, I tell you. I love learning about all the parts of our brain and like the sort of science behind it too.
Me too.
Well, my other question would be, why do we get imposter syndrome? Where does it come from? Which we've covered a little bit. I mean, it's you know, but I'm curious, like, yeah, I don't know. What do you see maybe most commonly with your clients or from your own life? Like where, like, what are some of the root causes?
So it usually is like the childhood / societal thing where like they had like a lot of things in a row that they felt like they weren't good enough, or they weren't smart enough, they were accomplished enough, and it's just kind of like rolled into them starting a business and like doing all the things required. And as I said too, it really is the lack of external validation too, because as I said, you're showing up, you're creating content, you're selling your offers to people, and like it can take some time. It can take time to grow a brand, grow an audience, grow your authority, and people just don't have that resilience all the time either. It can constantly feel like I'm not good enough, when that isn't the case at all. It's just like the fact that you have to keep going, keep growing, etc. But if you're already susceptible to having these like feelings of not being good enough, it's just going to like
Yeah.
exasperate that area.
Yeah. I
That
think
makes sense.
that's such a good, I love that you brought up emotional resiliency and
Yeah.
resiliency in any capacity, really. Because I think
Right.
like, yeah, when I think of imposter syndrome, it's like, oh, like believing in myself, being deserving, worthy, confidence. But I think honestly, maybe dare I say one of the most important factors in that is just the resiliency to keep going when you're not being validated, when it's not
Hmm.
working, when
A thousand
you don't
percent.
have the proof. And just
Yeah.
kind of that's why I love the whole speaking of us being chronically online, like back when being Delulu is this the Lulu was like the trending thing. Like that's kind of like resiliency, right? It's like I don't
It
have
totally
proof yet,
is.
and I'm just gonna fucking keep going.
Right.
That's one of the things I write in my journal all the time. I'm like, I'm so grateful for my resiliency because I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna keep going. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need the
And like
proof.
you have to have that because again, like there isn't going to be someone all the time being like, you're doing a great job. You really have to
Yeah.
like give that to yourself. And the other thing too about feeling like an imposter and regulating your nervous system is like imposter syndrome can really trigger like a fight or flight response. So
Hmm.
in terms of like putting yourself out there in terms of raising your prices, selling your offers, talking to people constantly online, your nervous system can kind of interpret like, oh my God, I'm in danger. This isn't safe, blah, 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 blah. And it could flood you with like stress hormones, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you wouldn't think something like opening up Instagram is going to like freak you out, but it totally can.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's really important to like regulate and do the subconscious work and everything, even the oh, it's kind of like you have to do all of this shit just to show up online. It's like you do because your brain is like thinking that you're in danger and its number one thing is to keep you safe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
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 So
I
I
keep thinking
guess,
of that
oh, what were
Whoopi
you gonna
Goldberg.
say?
And that's like you in danger, girl.
Exactly.
It's like literally our brains to us all the time. I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm not.
it's
There is
like, no,
not a lion chasing
I'm
me. I'm
just
just on
on Instagram
Instagram.
stories. I'm not dying. Thanks.
I'm just
I have
recording a reel. Stop.
I have chronic illness, and one of the like funny trends right now is like, unfortunately, my body can't tell between being chased by a lion and, doing my laundry. And that's like, I just started taking photos of my heart rate again so that I have POTS, and it was just taking photos of my heart rate again so I could jump on the trend. But I was like, unfortunately, my body can't tell the difference between being chased down in an alley and taking a
Right.
shower and doing my laundry. My heart rate's at 150 beats per minute. All I'm doing is loading the
It's like, are
wash machine.
you
Like,
working out, girl, or what? Like, what's
like literally you in danger. Like, go sit down. Um,
yeah.
but I guess my question would be, what, like, how do you take those steps then to start regulating that, to like start tackling the imposter syndrome?
Yeah. So, the work that I do with clients is a lot of the like subconscious reprogramming around their past, around their childhood, and things that the thoughts that come up for them as they are taking action. So that's why it's really important for like clients to know that like we still need to do the things. It's just you're going to be able to do the things easier and it's going to feel a lot flowier and it's going to feel like, okay, I'm doing the thing, I'm taking action, blah, 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 instead of like, I'm so afraid, am I doing it wrong, all of that. And so we do that through the subconscious reprogramming tools that I use in coaching. And then I also pair that with the nervous system regulation stuff. And that is a lot of like EFT tapping, breath work as well to help them teach their nervous systems that they are safe and that they can take action and that they're not going to die. And that even if they come up against really uncomfortable things, like it's just going to continue to get more and more like uncomfortable the more you grow and the more like you bring in terms of your your income, like you're just going to be taking a lot more risks and doing a lot of things. So you need to learn how to have that resiliency, because like I think entrepreneurship is like totally uncomfortable like 100% of the time. Like it totally
Yeah.
is. And we're definitely taught to like, I also think I also think too that like we're in a time right now where there's a lot of like self-care, take care of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things. And I think people have transferred that over to entrepreneurship. And it's like, but
Mm,
entrepreneurship is so fucking uncomfortable all the time. And that
yeah.
doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It just means like you need to acclimatize to it, you know?
Yeah.
And what I was like kind of starting to see with a couple of clients over the past couple of years that like weren't exactly a great fit is like they really didn't want to go into the discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if people aren't willing to do that, you can't really help them because it's always uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
with the self-care, self-love, sometimes it has to be tough love,
That's
you
what I was
know?
Sometimes
gonna
it can
say
go a
too. I
little
just
too
wrote that
far. Yeah.
down.
Like it's not all like floaty,
Bubble
rainbows and
baths.
butterflies,
I'm doing my
self-love. Sometimes it's
skincare.
like get your ass in that seat and get the work done that you said you were gonna get
Yeah, a
done.
Yeah.
thousand percent.
Yeah,
Or
I was gonna
yeah,
say that too.
like
I
record or whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes the self-care is doing the like scary journaling, doing the
Mhm.
shadow work, doing the
Yep.
EFT tapping in the morning and the lunchtime and the dinner time and right before you go to bed.
100
And
times a day.
yeah, and like really like sitting down and like Sadie said, like you guys said, like doing the work. And it's, it can also be okay. And after I do this, I will give myself time to take a bubble bath. Like
For
that
sure.
is my
Yeah.
treat. But yeah, I think that's a big thing that's happening right now with the self-care movement.
Yeah. Isn't that the self care stuff isn't true or like needed? It's just like, I think sometimes people rely on it to get out of doing the uncomfortable
Mm,
things that need to be done,
Yeah.
right? Like
yeah.
it's abnormal to have to like show up online and share your heart and share content and sell your offers and everything like that. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Hmm.
And what happens is if you also have the thoughts of I'm not good enough, I shouldn't be doing this, I'm doing this wrong, etc., it just
Hmm.
like pushes you farther and farther from the results that you're
Yeah.
looking for, from the results that you want.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it just all feels connected to I love the dynamic between, conversations around like feminine energy and masculine energy and,
Mm-hmm.
being a woman that has a business and like, the feminine, energy in a business and stuff. But also it's like we all have both and it's all about balance and actually like that like quote masculine, that's like action taker, doer, like kind of the nitty-gritty stuff. Like that's like some of the most fulfilling parts of having a business
For
is when you
sure.
do go
Hmm.
through that discomfort and you push and you make that stuff happen and then your like feminine gets to be a little goddess girly and enjoy it all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I love it.
so it's all about balance.
Exactly. Actually, I literally, shout out to Aline again. I swear she comes out with like little knowledge nuggets all the time and they come at the perfect time whenever we're recording. But she literally just posted another thing because Venus retrograde is coming up.
Okay.
Mm,
She's like Venus, and Mars, like desire without action is just wishful thinking. And
mm.
that's that kind of like masculine, feminine energy of
So
what you were saying.
true.
That's what that just made me think
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, that's manifesting anything. That's your business. That's anything in your
Yep.
life. Like we can visualize it all day long. And sometimes cool stuff does like magically appear in our lives, but it's way more fulfilling and cool too when you can like work towards something. It's like the manifesting part where you're visualizing, tapping on it, whatever. That's so
Yeah.
you
Yep.
can get in that energy, get those downloads, you feel more confident, you know what to
Yeah,
do.
I love that.
The intuition is lighting up. You're like,
Hmm.
yes, next step, go, go, go. You're willing to take the actions.
Yeah.
So I love that. Yeah, just
Yes.
wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I had a question written down. If you had one piece of advice or like one thing to focus on, maybe
That's
it's like your favorite tool
Just
to
one.
use.
Yeah.
I know.
I have that too.
To free ourselves from imposter syndrome, what would it be?
Oh
You're
my
going
God,
to a
that-
deserted island. You can only
I'm like
bring
sweaty
one.
right now. I'm like one thing. As somebody who has ADHD and over explains, you're choosing one thing.
You could never ask me this question. When someone asks what's your favorite, I'm like, favorite?
I'm the same way. I'm like, don't ask me what my favorite movie is, what my favorite this is. I don't know.
It depends on the hour of the day.
Literally.
Right.
Also, because do you need
what kind of music do you listen to? What do you mean? All of it.
All the music. Oh my God.
I
Yes.
hate that question. It's like my pet peeve question.
Yeah, because
Man,
what's my
always ask, what kind
mood?
of music are you into?
What's my mood?
What's my
How am I
mood?
feeling?
What
Yeah,
am I
totally.
trying to get to right now?
Right.
Are we looking for a rom-com? Are
Yeah.
we looking to cry? Because there's all different options for this.
Oh,
So,
yes,
anyways,
that's
what's
so
your
good.
one? No,
What's the one? Oh, let me think. I would definitely have to say like a tool that I really rely on is EFT tapping
Mhm.
because like it brings together the subconscious and the nervous system stuff. So
Yeah.
like to be able to bring those two things is so powerful.
Yeah.
In terms of like it helps you take the direct focus off like I am reprogramming this belief and like instead you're really like working with your with the energetic acupressure points
Mhm.
and like bringing those things together. I find it is really cool to be able to like soothe the nervous system at the same time as like undoing thoughts, etc.
That's
So I
mine
think it's
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really cool
Yeah.
tool. But I also have tons of other ones that are also great.
Yeah. That's that. If you ask me if there's one thing I can do every day, I would say just tap every day. But
Yeah.
like,
Totally.
even if it's for a minute.
1,000%.
If you can only fit one thing in that you're like, I got 5 minutes, Sadie. What's the one thing to do? I'd be like, tap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do it anywhere.
And like that's kind of the thing is like sometimes we don't have time to spend a lot of time like going into our beliefs and our thoughts and journaling and all this stuff. So it's a really like quick thing that you can do each and every day that is just like super effective.
Yeah, for literally anything. Yeah. And like it's not really good for us to be going deep every day either, you know? Like we don't want to be spending all of our time there. So I feel like tapping just
constantly working on yourself.
Exactly. Like but tapping can be all just happy affirmations. Tapping can be like, I'm just feeling stressed in this moment or I have anxiety I don't understand. It's like, it's just fits in any moment, any time.
Yeah.
Or anything, really.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say too, especially as like an ADHD girly. Like sometimes I can't just sit there and focus on something. So I will walk around my house and start tapping, or I'll like be doing something else. It's that like ADHD, you know, need to be doing two things at once. Like I need, so sometimes I'll just be like, or you're sitting in traffic and you're just like, okay, this is fine. I'm not going to freak out about this. Yeah. I really enjoy EFT tapping also.
Yeah, it's the best.
This episode is sponsored by EFT tapping.
By EFT tapping and the angler thing too as well.
Yes.
By the anglerfish that's the
anglerfish. It's also sponsored by that. Yeah.
We need to put the anglerfish on the thumbnail.
Yes.
Fourth best. Oh my god. Okay, I have one more question on the list. I love that the name of your podcast, and I think you have a program of the same name from
Yes, I do.
Imposter to Empowered. And I want to know, like, what does empowered mean to you? Like, give us your
Again, how do I explain that?
I know.
One word. You get one word.
No. But like
empowered
Like
Yeah,
my
yeah.
word for like I love talking about freedom. That's like my big value, and I could explain that, like, why that's so meaningful to me. So I that's kind of what I mean is like what like what does the word empowered mean for you, and
Yeah.
in the context of your journey and the work you do,
Is it
like
crazy to say that I've never like really thought about this? I was just like, I think it sounds really good, and I think it's a good from. But in terms of empowered, like I think off the tip of my tongue, I would say like just being able to really like own who you are and
Hmm.
own everything that you are without feeling like any part of you isn't enough or you shouldn't bring that part to the surface, because
yeah.
especially when it comes to the online space, there's a lot of coaches online, there's a lot of service providers online,
Hmm.
and how we choose people to do this kind of work with is because of who they are, is because of like
Hmm.
how they handle things, the way that they talk about things, etc. And like when somebody is really feeling like a fraud and they're not feeling good enough, it
Yeah.
can really have them holding back from really sharing who they are and really sharing the things that like separate them from someone else, right? Because I
Hmm.
mean, people
Yeah.
see it all the time in the online space, is like you can like scroll through anyone's Instagrams and you're just like, who are you? Right.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like empowered means like that it feels safe to be like fully who you are.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I work with a lot of people that get stuck on perfectionism. And I'm like, do you know how boring perfect is? Nobody wants to see perfect
And it's just
online or
not
nobody, I
realistic.
mean, it's like I want to see, I don't know, like there's something to the perfectly aesthetic accounts, whatever, that's their thing. But I just mean in a general sense, like
Mm-hmm.
our lives would be so boring if everything went perfectly all the time.
For
And
sure.
like what I love about my friends is like the imperfect parts of them, and like not that they're always on time or whatever the fuck, perfect is meaning in any context. Like
Yeah.
our messy, like chaotic, I don't know, maybe that's all my fire energy in my birth chart, but I'm like, give me the hot messes. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to look at perfect. That's
I
boring to
have it
me.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting that you attract so many clients with perfectionism problems, I guess,
Uh-huh.
because you're a Virgo, and that
Yeah.
is such a like
Yeah.
big part
Virgo.
of Virgo's journey is to
Yeah.
kind of break through that perfectionism.
Yeah, and that absolutely was a big part of my journey. I mean, when I first started a business, I was like, okay, like someone, if I have a spiritual business, then spiritual women act and look and talk a certain way, and it just wasn't me at all, right? And like,
Yeah.
Mm.
surprise, surprise, when I started being myself, guess who started having a real business and actual
Right?
clients and stuff, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly.
But I imagined a woman in a flowing white dress with like wildflowers in her hair spinning around. And that's just not me. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
sometimes, but
Cue
most of the
Demi
time,
Lovato. That's
yeah.
not me.
Yeah, like when I first started, I would really like hide the fact that I had a speech impediment and I wouldn't record
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid that like when people would know, they wouldn't want to work with me,
Mm,
etc. And then like when I actually started talking about it, everyone was kind of like, "Oh, like that's so cool and you've overcome it." And like there's
Yeah.
all of these things that like I didn't think that people be able to could relate to if they didn't have what I have. But it turns out like there's a very specific part of our brain when somebody tells a story, and that
Yep.
helps you kind of like identify yourself in their story, even if you can't like directly relate to the
hmm.
actual
Yeah.
thing. You start to see like, oh, like this is how that shows up for me. So I started talking about it and talking about how like it was holding me back and all of these things, and it actually became a big part of who I am. And like, yeah, it's annoying all the fucking time, but it is like something that does help separate me from everybody
Yeah.
else for sure.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like I think one of the biggest clues to like our, if you want to say our purpose, if it's outside of the context of a business, but just like our gift to the world, it's often like in that stuff that we feel like we have to hide the most, or we're most like ashamed
Definitely.
of, or
Yes.
we judge the most in ourselves that this means something about what I can
Mm-hmm.
do or what I'm allowed to do, or if I'm allowed to take up space or whatever. Like that thing we're the most scared of everybody, like quote, finding out, like
Right. It's like you have to say it
that's
now.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what to shine the light on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that's yeah, that's what people relate to, whether it's in a very like literal sense or it's just like, oh, I too have a thing that makes me feel like I cannot do the business or do the whatever it is. Um, shit, now I have permission to. Like we give everyone
Yep.
else permission when we give ourselves permission
Yeah.
to show up, even though we feel like yeah, we're a fraud or we're, you know, an imposter or all the things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yay.
Pam, do you have more questions?
I was just gonna say you've asked every question that I wanted to ask.
You're on the same vibe.
Yeah.
Well, we're best friends.
Yeah. And I just I think like one maybe we could count this as a silly goofy, but I was like
Okay.
um one thing I love following you. And
Thank you.
there have been so many times where I've been like, because you're very direct in your messaging, and I really, really like that. And there have also been so many times where I'm like, I gotta unfollow because it's triggering me. But I'm like, that's, but that's why I have to follow you
Mm-hmm.
because it's such a call out that I'm getting triggered, and it triggers that like flight response of
Yes.
like,
Ooh, so
I
I'm
need
so
to
sorry about
unfollow.
that.
But then I'm like, okay, no, I need to look at this and I need to like reflect on what this means for me
Mhm.
because it's triggering that part of me that where I'm like,
Yeah.
I have all of these things that she's like, that you're talking about, where you're like, this is what's holding you back from your business. And I'm like, you know that like from Arthur where she's like, I can't read that sign.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that meme. I fucking love DW. She's so fucking funny.
And it's just like
sure.
That's Pam watching your content.
literally,
Yeah,
and I just encourage everybody to like to follow you, follow Jill, because
At your coach Jill.
yeah, because especially if you have any, even like the teensiest amount of imposter syndrome or doubt about yourself, because it's been such to my nervous system.
It's hilarious because you're like, it triggers me, and I'm saying, I'm gonna help you do nervous system regulation.
But I mean it in like a like it's been so helpful kind of way. Does that make sense?
It activates
totally.
you.
It activates,
Totally.
yeah. And it's been
Totally.
like it's been such a like helpful reflective tool to be like, damn, I really got it. Between Sadie being like,
I trigger Pam too. It's okay.
And then
I trigger Pam all the time. It's a compliment.
Yeah. And I think that this is like great because people feel like they can't be direct and they can't be their full self and they can't say the things. But that only means that that person like isn't at their time in their journey yet to work with you. Like if they're triggered and if they leave, like that's happened tons of times where like clients have been like, you triggered me at first and then I unfollowed you and then I was like, I have to hire her because I'm being direct and I'm being me. And I think that this just shows you that it isn't ever about you if somebody does feel triggered or upset or something. Like it always has to do with them and how they're interpreting the content, right? And I also really do think that the right people who are supposed to work with you are going to. And if we can't be our full self when we show up and create content, like you're going to attract clients that are probably not the greatest fit. And that has totally happened to me. Like how I've been like, I've been really like people pleasy and not as direct, etc. And I've attracted like clients that didn't want to do the work and who were kind of like upset when my coaching was a lot more direct, and they were like, holy fuck, like this is different. And I was like, oh, I need to switch something up.
Yeah, going back to that, even just like giving permission that we were talking about before, like even like it's given me permission to, because in my messaging so much, I'm like, well, I even just had this conversation with Sadie the other day.
I was gonna say, you just did this, and what did I tell you? I said, you don't want people to sign up that are easily offended by every little thing.
Totally.
So stop trying to not offend everybody.
That video that I made, I was literally sitting here.
I had that group and they left and they were mean.
Yeah, but I was cracking myself up, and then I was like, oh God, I don't know if, so I just made this whole, like I just started beginning to offer like mediumship sessions.
I saw that. That's amazing.
Thank you. And the video that I just posted, I saw, you know, that I don't know if you've seen it, but if we're all chronically online, then we all probably have. But there's these two guys and they're dancing to whatever song it is, and he's like clapping and he's like stomping. I don't know. It's a whole, I don't even know. I can't remember what the song is called. But it's on CapCut. So I used that like CapCut and
I've seen that. Yes.
And was just like, you know, like me and your grandma absolutely vibing in the spirit.
I saw that exact reel. And I thought that was so funny.
I thought it was so funny. And then I got so scared. I was like, oh, people are going to get really upset about this because mediumship is so, like, it's a very sensitive topic. And I know that. And I take a really big responsibility when I do these sessions. But I, like, my whole life, the whole thing has been the way my family is like, we make jokes about everything. Like, you have to laugh. Otherwise, like, I have it tattooed on me because my great grandma would say it all the time. If we didn't laugh, we'd cry. So anyway, the whole, getting back to my point is that it's given me permission to also just kind of like take those steps to be, I guess, not like maybe like direct in my own way, like direct kind of in my like goofiness and like ADHD and chronically ill self and all the things.
Yeah. Because also you don't want to attract a mediumship client that's like, if they might not be ready for mediumship if they're still in a place where it's like a recent loss and like they can't laugh about it yet. That's not a good time to do mediumship for somebody anyways. And I mean,
or if they just also don't have a sense of humor too.
Like that's just not your person.
It's just not your person, and like that is okay.
It's not the kind of, their relative probably isn't the kind of person you want to channel and have a good time with anyways.
Exactly.
I will say though, you do need some emotional resiliency for posting mediumship online, because back in the day, every time I would post about it, somebody would be like, it's not real, you're actually talking to demons and Jesus quotes and whatever. And you really have to be able to just be like,
not even just mediumship
grounded
stuff.
in what you're doing.
Any spiritual stuff. They started, and one of my friends, she used to mentor me, and one of like her direct guides that she works with all the time is actually Jesus. And
what?
All of the like people
thinks he's Jesus?
No. Like one of her like spirit guides.
Yes. Okay. I was like, wait, somebody that she works with thinks that he's
no, sorry. Okay. To be clear, it's one of her guides in the spirit realm. She works with Jesus often. And so by association, like in turn, like I have also spoken to him, and everybody that's like turned to Jesus, and I'm like, we're good. Talked to him before.
You know,
we're good.
I'm like, Jesus was the OG solid manifestation teacher.
We're solid.
Met the
guy. You really
He's
need
just
like
a guy. Like
you really need to have like really strong skin when you show up online and you talk about anything, because like even things that I've talked about on threads, like people just want to argue over there. And I'm an Aries, so I'm like, come at me, I'll fucking fight you. Like we have all Aries energy.
Yeah. Wait, when's your birthday?
The 21st of March.
Ooh, coming up. Well, I mean, like in a month, but I'm like, it's almost to me.
Yeah, it's almost here. It's the birthday month. The birthday month. But yeah, so like everyone just wants to fucking argue over there. And I'm like, I will argue.
Like, I'll fucking argue. I
don't fucking care. But like,
well, like, no problem. Let's fucking go.
But I just feel like, especially in the online space, people can't fathom that like someone else has a different like opinion than them and a different perspective. And I mean, I think it all works. Like if you really like believe in the thing that you're doing, it all works. And you're going to have your people that are going to be like, fuck yes, right? And that's who you need to think about, instead of everyone that is just going to like comment. It's like those people are not going to pay you anyways. Fuck them. Like,
they were never.
They were never.
There's so much nuance that like we can't say every little, because the people will be like, well, what about shit, what about? Of course there's always what abouts.
Exactly.
I know you can literally be
what
like,
what about if my grandma died yesterday? This is inappropriate. Shit, I wasn't talking about,
you're
obviously.
Like,
I don't know you.
Your grandma,
this came up on your algorithm. She probably put it in your algorithm.
You can literally be like, the grass is green, and they're like, not when it dies, it's brown.
Like,
totally. Like, okay.
You can be like, I love oranges, and they're like, what about apples? What do you have against apples? So you just have to picture like exactly who you're talking to and just focus on talking to them. And we do our best. It is crazy. The internet is wild. Think about when we were little, and then to now. How
I literally just saw this video earlier where have you seen the video? It's honestly a really cute video, and I'm not gonna argue about any dog training things or anything like that, but it's a really cute video.
We're explaining is happening, Pam.
That's it. End of call. And that's been episode 32. Thanks, everybody. But it's this like husky and this little kid. He's got to be like a year. I don't know how old children look when whatever, but he's got to be like a year old. And there's this husky, and they're laying in bed, and the dad is like, okay, bud, like get out of bed. He's talking to the dog. He's like, get out of bed. And he's like, fine, stay in the bed. You know what I'm talking about? And we're
on the same algorithm.
And the dog's like the dad comes back. The dog's got his arm around the little kid, and they're sleeping right next to each other. Everybody under it is like, this is extremely dangerous.
Oh, I know.
And then there were just like other people that were like, can you just shut the fuck up, please?
Yeah. It's because
so like, crazy.
This is going to sound rude, but it's because everybody has access now to the internet. Even stupid people.
Yes.
Even people who are like, they feel like they need to share their opinion and share your thoughts. The trolls, you know? And it's just like, our people know that like you don't need to always comment on something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of stupid people on the internet. So that also helps in terms of me being like, it's okay. They're just stupid. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot. I'm not that internet famous, but the now and then, you know, that someone will comment something rude or mean or whatever. I'm just like, oh, your life sucks, doesn't it? Because like you're trying, they're literally just trying to channel something that somebody else probably made them feel and project it onto you.
Yeah,
like, and it truly is something to just kind of almost have pity for somebody, because 99% of the time you're not being offensive. 99.9% of the time you're not being offensive. You're not doing something wrong. And someone's just having a bad day, or their life really sucks. They don't feel like they have any control, or they just feel like everybody else makes them feel terrible, and their only power they feel is their little keyboard warrior time they have. So I'm like, oh, sorry, babes. Sorry, life is so tough that you had to comment something mean. Sorry, you're so bored and you have nothing going on. I'm literally just a girl.
We all need to get offline. We all need to touch
honestly.
I love reading comments, though. I am a comment section slut.
Oh, I do too. However, I did have to stop consuming so much TikTok because I was scrolling for too long, and I was just like, this is not good. So I'm off it now for like a couple weeks.
I've been TikTok sober for
haven't been
TikTok's over for a couple of weeks, and I'm
my
feeling
name's
good.
Sadie, and I haven't been on TikTok for 4 hours.
I knew you were gonna say 4 hours.
It's so addicting. It's so addicting, and I was just spending a lot of time like scrolling and reading the comments and stuff, and I was like, I need to get off.
The thing is,
I know. I'm like,
with
what
the
am I doing?
comments is that a lot of time
good.
people are also so funny.
They're so funny.
Oh, they're so
they're always
funny.
hilarious.
And sometimes the comments are funnier than the video. So I just love scrolling.
You have to check. Yeah.
You have to read the comments because it's always like hilarious. And you're just like, how is everybody so funny?
It literally, like, as much as there can be a lot of like pain, discomfort, distraction, draining, happening on the internet, like I do love, it just brings me so much peace and love to know how weird everybody is everywhere.
Totally.
Because I love weirdos, and I'm just like, you guys are so weird.
You're like, I'm not the only person who has had this thought. Like that's how I got diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah,
because I started seeing, I was like, oh, all of the quirks that I have and all of that stuff. I was like, oh, is this ADHD? Do others have these things too? So it really helped me actually, really discover I had this, because I just thought like I'm fucked up, like there's something wrong in my head, and it turned out it's ADHD, and it's actually so normal, so it's fine.
Yeah,
exactly.
I learned a lot about myself from my algorithm myself. Like, okay.
My favorite ones are like when there's a video of a guy just doing literally anything, and then I don't know if you guys are on Book Talk at all, but then all of the comments are like, the Book Talk girlies have arrived, and I'm like, everybody needs to chill out. Everybody, this is a public forum. I've
read a lot of TikTok comments that are just like, raw, next question. I'm like,
oh my god,
those are my favorite. It's so funny.
I'm just like, oh my god.
Or the one that they're like, are you available for weddings, like as the groom? I'm like, I love the girls that are like,
that is really funny.
How the tables have turned. We get to troll the men on the internet.
Oh my god, it's so funny.
In a fun way. I love that shit. Okay. Now, though. This episode also sponsored by the internet, being chronically online.
We meet every Tuesday for support.
I love it.
Okay. Should we recenter?
We'll recenter. I mean, I think we Jill, is there anything else you want to share with us? Tell us more about like your work, how to connect.
Get out of my head.
Yeah.
Sorry, we share a single brain cell.
So as I said, I have the From Imposter to Empowered podcast, and you can also get my book on Amazon. It's called You're Not Special. And as well, my signature coaching program is also the From Imposter to Empowered program, where we do the subconscious work, the nervous system regulation, and the strategy so you can overcome the imposter syndrome and all the stuff that's holding you back to sell your offers with clarity and confidence, and to show up on social media and make 10K a month with high ticket offers. So that's all the things that I can share with you today. And then of course you can go on Instagram and Threads, and I am at Your Coach Jill.
Amazing.
Jill, this was so fun.
This was so fun.
Thank you. Oh my God. Here.
I'm like, come back next week.
Let's keep talking. It's so fun. I love it.
One of us.
Everybody go follow Your Coach Jill. Jill, thank you so much for just sharing all of your light and your energy and having a silly goofy time with us. This has been great.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Make sure you're following the Giggly Witches. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify at Giggly Witches on Instagram, TikTok, all the things. New episodes every Thursday. I'm Sadie at I am Sadie Olson on everything. And Pam, what about you?
I am Pam. You can find me at Velvet Snake Oracle. And there was one time I got introduced myself as I am Pam, and then everybody made fun of me for the rest of the summer because I was on tour. I am Pam.
Now we're gonna make fun of you every episode from now on.
But I'm Velvet Snake Oracle. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram. yeah, there's more. I've got more things in the brewing, in
Everything's
the
in the
works.
show notes.
Everything's in
So
the show
go
notes.
today.
Yes.
And thank you again, Jill, for
Thank you so much, guys. It was so
us.
fun.
Bye, Giggly
Bye.
Witches.
Bye.